have a daughter who's 24 years old. She's very, very, very feisty. And I was saying, like I said earlier, I really don't want to be this. I don't like being the face, all of this. And my daughter said to me, Mum, many women I know do a lot of things, but then they disappear into the background and then take the glory. If I don't see women there, forging the way, I don't know that I can get there when I'm older. So why I'm here today.
Hello everybody, this is Dalmia and welcome back to another episode of the Climapreneur show. We are back again to inspire you with another powerful conversation. Our guest today is Antoinette Vermilye. She is the co-founder of Gallifrey Foundation and she changes climate. Welcome to the Climapreneur show, Antoinette. I'm so excited to have you here. You are basically one of the creators, someone who really led the foundations of two extremely powerful platforms, the Gallifrey Foundation and SHEChangesClimate. It's so inspiring. When I say that, SHEChangesClimate, it gives me that little punch of motivation. And yes, welcome to the Climapreneur show. I'm so excited to have you here, to know your story, to know your journey. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. That is so kind of you. And I'm very, very honored to be on this amazing show. And it is so lovely to have a platform to be able to talk about this really important issue.
Yeah, it's one of the most motivation mornings. So, I'm quickly going to start with, did the little Antoinette ever imagine that you'll be doing something this day? You'll be inspiring so many people around you, especially women. So, did the little girl imagine that?
No, I had no idea. As a young girl, I lived in West Africa. So I was basically out in nature, either down by the sea or in the jungle, looking at creatures and learning that it's better just to watch and not touch and observe the interconnectedness of it all. And I think that currently humans, we tend to go in and see something, touch it, not understanding the long-term consequences or the ripple effect of what we do. And I think that's why we are where we are with climate change. We went down one narrow alley and went, okay, oil is good, let's use it, and used it to a point now where it's no longer. So it's that kind of no, I had no idea I would be here. I would never have used my voice even 10 years ago. But this is a cause. No, I like to be behind screens. I like to be behind words, but not a front person. But this is more important. This is more important than me, than you, than anyone. So that's why I'm here, because it's so important. And the message is bigger than anything, any ego or anything like that. So that's had to be thrown out the window.
Antonia, then what happened? As you mentioned that maybe 10 years ago, you wouldn't have been doing this, you wouldn't have been using your voice. So what is right at this moment, at this point, which was not right 10 years ago?
So if we look at climate change, most of the most dramatic things have happened in the last 30 years, in my lifetime. So when I was young and I lived out in in West Africa, I could see a lot of biodiversity. I could see a lot of richness. I then lived in the Middle East, near the Red Sea. And again, the biodiversity, the marine biodiversity was incredible. What has happened is it just seems our scale of industry, our scale of growth, our scale of vacuuming up all our resources have been without much consequence or thought to the long-term effects. And we are now starting to see those effects, and they are major. So what happened was about 10 years ago, I was just involved in my original organization, Gallifrey Foundation, is all about marine conservation. Because just to give you some context, the ocean absorbs over 90% of our carbon dioxide, our excess carbon dioxide. It's actually being the best buffer zone we have. But there's a tipping point. There's a point at which it can no longer take it. And there are major transformations taking place in the ocean, which are not only going to, at the moment, they're helping us with our spending habits. I mean, I often describe this as being, if I were a banker and I had a client who kept spending money to the point that they were in the red, to, you know, and they're in debt and they're in debt and they're in debt, I'd be the banker going, hang on a second, you know, and that's Mother Nature. She's starting to say, hang on, we need to start calling in the shots. So in terms of ocean, we've lost quite a lot of our biodiversity, and that is either through our unsustainable practices, such as overfishing, bottom trawling, our marine and chemical and plastic pollution are affecting the phytoplankton that produce half our oxygen. If we kill that off through our using the ocean as a garbage dump, we're actually hurting ourselves. So the dots are starting to connect. So what happened, how I got into She Changes Climate is totally by coincidence. And I don't know for you, sometimes our lives are such that we think we're going in one straight direction. Life is not like that. You go in zigzags. You end up doing one thing and then suddenly you come here and then you bounce off that. So about last October or September, we came across an article that had mentioned that the UK, which will be hosting the climate negotiations for this year, were all male. Now, normally one's comment would be, oh, that's terrible, gosh, you know, blah, 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 and then you go to bed at night. But I'm a sleepless person, so I was lying in bed thinking about this, and I went, hang on a second, okay, so what's the problem with this? And the problem with this is that it's a certain type of perspective. We are only having male perspectives in solving this problem, which means we're not having an all-round 360-degree input. And as we know, you know, stupid data in, stupid data out. Wouldn't we want to be looking for something that is more complete, that reflects everyone who's going to be affected by climate change, including half the planet? And in fact, we often talk about global ethnic majority that is left out, because this is not just a matter of gender. This is a matter of diversity. This is a matter of the full range where we need that input coming in. So I thought, okay, fine. You know, what am I going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? And then I started investigating things. So I live in Switzerland, which is very close to the United Nations. The United Nations is host to the World Meteorological Organization. They are kind of the driver behind the UNFCCC, which is all to do with the COP, the climate change, climate negotiations. And so I went to them and I said, okay, so that the UK is hosting, what does that mean? You know, surely, you know, it's not going to make much difference. And one of the contacts came back and said, yes, it's true. The agenda is pretty formalized. So the things that go on a meeting, the agenda items are pretty much the same. However, the framing and the narrative is entirely in the hands of the host nation. So what does that mean, framing and narrative? I'll give you an example. A few years ago, the COP was held in Poland. Poland is a coal-producing country, and they have a lot of people involved in coal. They didn't want to talk about renewable energy. They wanted to talk about agriculture, because that diverted away from coal. And coal is a huge emitter of greenhouse gas emissions. So the point was they deflected. And we are now at a point where the scientists say we are at literally 10 years away from having to have our intended actions to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions fully in place and working if we are to reach net zero by 2050. If we miss that target, we have overshot our chances. And it's, if I go back to what we were saying at the Rio summit in the late 80s, 90s, Why? If we had done what we had done then, it would have been so much cheaper, so much less painful, and we would have been way ahead. But it seems to me that the closer we're coming to the edge of this waterfall that we're going to go down, the politicians at the top are too concerned with the short-term economic crises or issues that face them to the sacrifice of our long-term legacy for our children and grandchildren. So this is a really big issue. And it was one that, as I was thinking about it, I thought, my gosh, we have to do something about this. So with a group of friends, including Bianca Pitt, my co-founder or co-conspirator, and Elise, who lives with me here in Switzerland, we got together and we said, we have got to get more women up into this team. This is an essential item, because if we don't have women's perspectives. And the other thing that we've learned through our research is that if you just have a token woman, I was just looking at statistics before coming on. So in England, we've had a female prime minister. You've had a female prime minister. The point is, though, if that female prime minister is surrounded mainly by males, the way that she will be able to communicate and create action will be different than if she is 50 or even 60 or even 70% females. There's a different way of thinking that involves emotional intelligence. It involves compassion. It involves kindness. And these are values that actually we need right now, because in climate change negotiations, you can't be a winner and a loser. We need to have everyone winning somehow. And unfortunately, this combative approach seems to be the one that is taking place. You know, the rich countries who have lived off their colonial pasts are still riding that wave, but to the detriment of all the countries who didn't have that opportunity and now paying the costs. And that is something that we need to reckon with now, not later, now. So this is why She Changes Climate came about. This is an urgent, important campaign. Now, it's right now it is driven to push the UK government to add more women to the top of their negotiating team. So that's where we're at today.
Like this is amazing, and like I really appreciate the fact that the way you formed a team, like as you told about Elise, Bianca, and all other women, like I really feel that's really a powerful team. And like Antoinette, like sometimes, like as you also mentioned that one night you thought that why are women not there at the the policy making stages and at the COP decision making points. So at that point you felt sleepless. At that point, did you feel anxious? Like did you feel that I feel something about this? But from that point to taking a step, was there like several I would say levels of emotions included? Because I really, really, really appreciate the fact that you actually cared about something and you went out and took a step. But sometimes, like, what I get to hear is that, okay, the problem is there, but it's so big. Like, how can I do something? But what you did is commendable. You saw something which you didn't feel was right and you took a step out. So, was it an easy decision on a personal level, or did you yourself went through several layers of doubt, several nights of, should I do this? Should I not do this?
It's the very good point that you're saying. And I think this is something where I think women are good at this. Reach out to your girlfriends, to your sisters, to the sisterhood, because I could not have done this alone. It's radical collaboration. It is people getting together about something that they believe in and working from different angles. So I think in the end, you might be referring also to eco-grief. When I heard this, my job is protecting the oceans. That's what I want to do. To do this is a job I don't want to be in. I shouldn't have to be in. We're in the 21st century and we're still talking about gender equality. I mean, come on. is ridiculous that at this time, at this moment in time, this is still an issue. We should be beyond this. And in fact, it's a wrong that is taking up a lot of our time when we should be spending it on other things. That's why I am angry. The second point, though, is if I'm angry about something, when I was, and as I said before, I like to be in the background. I don't really like to be in the front. But there are three things I've learned through this process which are really, really important and which every woman on the planet should be talking about. The first is our perspectives, our experience counts. We have a viewpoint that is different to others. And that may be not every woman is going to think exactly the same. We're all not all pinky girls and everything. We've got different views, but they're different perspectives and we need them included. And I'll just give you an example that about 20 years ago in India, there was a terrible earthquake. And a number of, hundreds of thousands of homes were destroyed. So the team that built in, it was World Bank, it was NGOs, they all came together, building plan, reconstruction, beautiful, built 300,000 homes. When everyone moved back in, there were no kitchen facilities. Do you know why? No women were consulted. You have to sit there and think, it's an economic price that we pay as well. And if we included perspectives from women from lower middle income countries, it's been estimated we could add as much as 12 trillion to the global economy. So this is an economic issue as well. And also the other point that we do as women is we tend to save money. So that is the other part, is that where women have been involved in government and everything, actually climate and energy decisions are usually much more progressive. And so we are actually an asset that is underrepresented and undervalued. And that's the point. The other point I would say, so that's the perspectives of women. The other point is perception of women, women being seen. So in the climate change story, women are portrayed as victims. It's the women who are going to suffer. Yeah, not through their own fault. A lot of this is because of the decisions that have made it that women are pushed into situations where they don't necessarily want to be. So women are also at those points under extreme pressure, under extreme conditions, incredibly creative and resilient. And we need to tap into that. We need to tap into that experience. The other part of perception of not women just being as victims, but actually as incredible architects of change and of solutions, is the point of actually seeing women in those positions. So one of our asks has been to the UK government, because the UK negotiating team is based on the UK civil service structure. And obviously in India, very much it's a very bureaucratic, hardwired system that we need to get out of. And it's not easy to unpick these very heavy red tape things. So what we have actually gone and said to them is, even in your hierarchical system, if you have directors and deputy directors, that may be your structure, but show them as co-directors. Because the psychological impact is super important when people meet. It's a level of equality. It is not one up here and one down here. And right now, the UK government has just appointed, under a lot of pressure, there's the lead negotiator for climate change, and they've just appointed a woman as the deputy lead negotiator. And our point was to them was, that's great, but you should call them both co-leaders. And why is that? Because if I walk into a room and I see someone, a male, who is the leader and a woman who is the deputy leader, who am I going to look at if I want to make a difference? I'm going to go to the leader. We need to break those psychological inbuilt barriers. We need to start creating flattening that hierarchy so that women have equal opportunity to be listened to and to be regarded. So even if the reality is for the UK civil structure that it's very constrained, like a little, a straitjacket, on the perception side, we are seeing them as equal representatives and with equal decision-making capacity, which in fact they do have. So that was the perception part. The final part is space. Now this is super important, and this is why I'm here, because I have a daughter who's 24 years old. She's very, very, very feisty. And I was saying, like I said earlier, I really don't want to be this. I don't like being the face, all of this. And my daughter said to me, Mum, many women I know do a lot of things, but then they disappear into the background and men take the glory. If I don't see women there, forging the way, I don't know that I can get there when I'm older. So why I'm here today is because I would be doing a disservice to young women and our daughters if we are not here now. And it's time for all women, where possible, to step forward and claim what their achievements are or what they're doing. Because this, what is it? It's what was ingrained in me, to be discreet, to be polite or whatever. Have you seen the young generation? They're full of confidence. They stand out. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm going to have to follow in their path. They're the ones teaching me, because that way I can do something for them. So those are our 3 asks from She Changes Climate. So it's basically women's perspectives as input, women to be perceived everywhere, so that they are, whether or not your structure is very full of red tape, find other creative and tangential ways to show women as equal representatives and use them, use their resources, use their intelligence, use their creativity. And the final thing is, for younger women, we need to fill that space. So women now of my age need to be there, sort of like, here we are, so that my daughter and all our daughters and younger women can see. An example is Kamala Harris. When she was a young woman, she went to the theatre and she saw a woman, an Indian woman, on stage, and she went, oh my gosh. She suddenly could identify with her. That is super, super powerful. So those are the kind of 3 asks that we are insisting on with She Changes Climate. And whilst She Changes Climate is focusing mainly on the UK COP26 leadership team, this applies to all climate negotiations, because when women are included, chances of success have proved to be much greater.
This is amazing. And the way I always say that, we really need to walk together. And it's like, somewhere I feel that climate action unites us, and it has that power that can really unite us as women, as a society, and together we can really create solutions. And I definitely agree on that part, that women really have the skills, like empathy, I think, is one of the biggest skills that we as women have. And that is really the heart and soul of Climapreneur: collaboration, working together. And I'm really, really, really glad that you picked out those points. Antoinette, what you're doing is amazing. Did it just replenishes your heart? Did it rejuvenates your soul? And do you feel sometimes, hey Antoinette, what you're doing is amazing, like I'm loving myself, I'm loving the work I am doing? Do you appreciate yourself for the work you are doing?
I'm learning to appreciate myself. I think many women are very hard on themselves in basically saying, oh yeah, but I will tell you something. The most important thing is, again, 10 years ago, I was basically doing my little work in my little world. And I used to think, how can I reach out and start doing this? And that's a really important thing, because people tend to say, oh, but you're in such a position to do this. I actually spent a bit of time reaching out to scientists. We started working with organizations. I've learned a lot, and we've networked. So with the She Changes Climate movement, I happened to be, through Bianca, on a network of women who were involved in the environment. So my first piece of advice to young women is reach out, create a WhatsApp group of things that concern you about the environment, about climate change, about going plastic free, about permaculture, all the things which are not just always, oh, this is so terrible. But by the way, God, I've heard this really good piece of news. And we literally WhatsApp each other all the time. And there are about 100 women on the group. It becomes a community where you can reach out to others. And A, you find yourself not alone. B, other people have different perspectives, can bring different information. And above all, they can mobilize action when you need to. I think that's very, very important in this day, that, that we give a lot of hassle to all social media and so forth, but there is an advantage when we use it for good. And I think at the end of the day, with climate change issues, all of us can do something. And I keep going back, so now this is me putting on my marine conservation hat, is, a plant-based diet, or at least eating less meat or less fish, is hugely important in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, because most of our meat production goes to deforestation, greenhouse gas emissions, cattle. So there are ways, just by our little gestures at home, it's like a little pebble in a pond. It has huge ripples. Our purchasing power, consumerist lifestyle, which has been imposed on us and pushed on us by very, very heavy marketing. Sometimes during COVID, I was in a fortunate position that I could go out for walks in nature. Let me assure you that those experiences were so much greater and so much more experiential than a quick online purchase from Amazon or something like that. So suddenly reconsidering, what do we really need for our happiness? Those are important issues. I think the other issue I learned is family and friends. So I missed my friends because I couldn't see them. I was fortunate that I had family with me. In some cases, families don't always work well together, but thankfully ours did. But the point about it is what really matters in life. And someone once told me, when you're on your deathbed, you never sit there and say, I wish I worked harder. You say, I wish I'd reached out to so-and-so. I wish I'd given my daughter a hug. Or I wish I'd, things that we need to sit there and say, what really matters? Who are our heroes? They're not the bankers. They're not the politicians. They're the people cleaning up the waste pickers. They're the nurses. They're the doctors. They're the people who delivered food. I mean, these are our heroes. Why is our world so geared to this money, when in fact it's just the pursuit of that figure, that increasing number in our account or whatever, is making us lose contact with what really does matter. When you step back, you go, So that was one of the most important things. So in terms of rejoicing, I always look on the bright side of life. If we are facing a climate crisis right now, my option is do nothing or do something. I'm bloody well going to do something. I'm never going to sit still. And to me, this is urgent and vital. And if my voice persuades someone to do just one little thing, then today I've done my job.
You are like a powerful woman. I always feel that climate change challenges are opportunities in disguise, opportunities to act, opportunities to create climate solutions. And this is exactly what you did. And yes, at this point, I would just like to add to all the viewers, to all the listeners who are listening to us right now, if there is anyone whose work you like, if there is anyone who you want to appreciate, please send a text, please message that person, please call that person and tell them that what they are doing is amazing, because you do not know that your appreciation, your message can be the upliftment for that person on that day when he or she feels like giving up. So let's do this together and let's together create climate solutions. And Antoinette, I can say this with Climapreneur and House of Clima, it has done something to my soul. It has shaped me in a way I could have never imagined of. So what has SHEChangesClimate done for you on a personal level, on a level that you felt like, my God, this was meant for me. This is what I was meant to do. So what did it do to your soul? Because I can see a smile on your face. I can see that the contentment that you have. So what has it done to you?
What it's done for me is shown me that even someone like me can make a difference. And the other thing is, one is fortunate enough sometimes to make a difference as an individual, but with radical collaboration with a whole load of other women, we can make so much more of a difference. And that is the power of women grouping together for a single purpose. And the thing is that this is really what I love about this, why I love She Changes Climate, is there are many groups. Now, let me be very clear. She Changes Climate was a seed that was born last year in October. We launched it in December. It created quite a stir. We had a lot of publicity. We had over 400 signatures from leading women climate scientists, politicians, environmentalists, film stars. We had a lot of backing for this. The point about this, though, how did that come about? I mean, I was like, I can't believe this, because there are many groups behind us who have been doing this work for many, many years, working very hard to do the research, to do the training, to do the reaching out to governments for women in climate negotiations, for equality, for inclusiveness. So why are we different? The reason why I think we're different is I call ourselves, we're the firework. We'll go up, we'll have a psh, and we'll probably disappear. But the point is, what we are doing is, because we're somewhat radical and a little bit more forthright with our voice, we are not accepting, we're not being diplomatic about this, because the time for diplomacy has been and gone. So when we had our talks with Alok Sharma, who is the head of COP26, we were very pointed in our discussions with him. We gave him a list. We basically said, this is what you need to do in order to achieve perception, perspective, and space. And we gave them an itemized list of things to do. To be able to have that position, when I was talking to him, I have to tell you, I was like, oh my God, here I am talking to a leading politician. And I felt very, very strange. And there was a part of me that felt a bit shy, because here you are talking to someone really important. And there was another part of me going, hey, Ellie, no, I'm going to bloody well tell you what I think. And so that part is super important, because and that was the difference, is I was with Bianca, and the two of us could help each other. So sometimes when you're in a conversation and you feel a little bit, you tend to shut down. We both really pushed and were quite strong and polite, but very strong on what we were saying, because that was so important. So what I'm just trying to say is that She Changes Climate has given me a lot of joy, in that we've touched so many women who feel that this is an issue that is really up close and personal to them, who want to be able to do something. And the other point about it is, what an amazing network of women just because we have 400 people on a letter, that is representative of 40 million or even 4 billion women working in one way or another to do something either about gender equality or about climate change, or both. So that is what I loved about it, is it touched something, and we are not trying to take the air away from these other groups, but to amplify their work and channel it in such a way that when we get to COP26, it's our motto now is it's an ownerless campaign called 50-50 Vision. And it basically means, for any board that our asks now are, if I am a man who has a company and I look at my board and there are not 50-50 women, actively go out and seek women. Or if I have in my organization, many of the women are not managers, actively seek women. Actively do all of this. And one of the questions I had back, which was really interesting, is, well, what if they're not the right person for the job? And I looked and I said, define right person from the job. Because from the very beginning, from university, you could have had a man and a woman, exactly the same grades. What happened? So-and-so knew so-and-so's son, said, yeah, you can come onto the board. Yeah, off you go. And it goes on like that. There is a whole social network behind this that has pushed that default thinking forward. Now, that is not to say I've also been in touch with the National Health Service. I was on a talk about 3 months ago. And what was interesting there, we were talking about this, about equality, gender equality and balance on the board. And they actually said, we've hit the point now where we have parity. We have literally 50% women, 50% men. So now we do choose the right person for the job. But we have to get there, it is not going to evolve organically. We've had 100 years since suffragettes for that to happen. It's not happening. It's not happening organically because people will default to what's the easiest path. And we need more proactive steps and I've often said, the best way for men to help women is, step down to step up for women. And it's a very hard ask, but making those asks for the really enlightened would be so much more beneficial. Companies with mixed boards are actually more successful. So there's a lot going for this, but the problem is this is the default reaction. It's like, oh yeah, it's been that way, so we'll do it that way. Well, no, we have to change everything now. And as I've often said about the climate crisis, it's been only men who've been running it. If that formula were to work, wouldn't it have been solved by now? Maybe we need to change our thinking.
Like one of the most amazing, like this is so meaningful. And one of the most amazing part is that, like what you are doing is like, rising together by uplifting each other, by empowering each other. And as this brings me back to the point that climate action really unites us, be it men, be it women, we need to, go together and do it, because I feel that, men and women, we both have our own qualities, and climate action needs both of those qualities. And it's only together we can, be on this amazing road and be on this amazing journey. So, thank you, Antoinette. Thank you for being on the Climapreneur show. Thank you for inspiring us with such amazing, such amazing things, I would say. And really, 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 thank you so much.
It's been my absolute pleasure, and thank you for having me on this broadcast. I'm very, very touched and very honored, and it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you. So thank you very much indeed.